They do want to make a deal. We have a large armada, flotilla, you can call it whatever you want, heading toward Iran right now, even larger than what we had in Venezuela. We'll see how it all works out. You know, they have to float someplace. They might as well float near Iran.
Well, the Treasury also adding pressure today with fresh new sanctions on Iranian officials over the violent repression and corruption surrounding the deadly protests. Joining us now is former Deputy National Security Advisor, Heritage Foundation Senior Fellow Victoria Coates. Great to see you, Victoria. 47 years the jihadists have been in power. They've been jailing, torturing, hanging by yardarms their dissidents. I get the sense that the majority of the people want to change, but it's a big country. You got about 90 million people there. Even if just 10% of the jihadists hang on, that's still about 10 million people. And that seems to me to indicate you may have a civil war if they want regime change, no?
Well, David Dagan, good to be with both of you. These are very different protests, David, this time, and the response is very different. The problem that they're trying to solve there in Tehran is systemic economic cascading failure. Last week, they asked their banks asked the Central Bank of Iran to print 5.6 quadrillion rial. That's not a good sign. And the bank came back and said, well, we'll do 2 quadrillion. If you're printing 2 quadrillion of anything, you're in deep, deep trouble. And I think that then explains the ferocity with which the regime has gone after the protesters. Conservative estimates of 10,000 killed. That's really been a red line for the president. And as he said, we've got this armada assembled in the Persian Gulf. We have the great Abraham Lincoln carrier group. That's a massive amount of firepower. This is a very strong signal to the Ayatollahs that they better make the deal or else.
Victoria, what are the next steps should we watch for? How do we interpret what we hear from the regime?
Well, I mean, the regime is bluffing, essentially, Dagan. They know they're powerless against this kind of display of American might. Think back just to last June to the 12-day war, culminating in Operation Midnight Hammer, the B-2 bombing. They could do nothing about either Israel or the United States ruling their skies. And now we've rolled all of that equipment right back up to their front door. We just had the CENTCOM commander, Admiral Bradley Cooper, in Israel over the course of last weekend for consultations. So we're very lashed up with them. Their intelligence chief is in Washington right now for further consultations. So I think you have a very coordinated group of assets in the region if the president gives the order that he is willing to strike Iran, both over their nuclear program, their missiles, and their repression of dissidents. Then he's got everything at his fingertips to do something quite devastating.
But Victoria, I got to push back because you didn't answer my question. Do you think, even if there's only 10% of the population, that's 10 million people that are jihadists committed to continuing with this reign of terror that they've lived under, will there be a civil war in Iran?
Well, there almost is one going on right now, David. I mean, if we've had conservative estimates, 10,000 killed, more liberal estimates, over 30,000. I mean, in the 2022 protests, 1,500 people were killed, which was considered shocking then. So in a way, you have a civil war going on now. I would question whether there are 10 million people truly committed to the preservation of the Islamic Republic at this point, if for no other reason than the economy is in such a shambles. They can't manage that beautiful country, which should, with the third largest proven oil reserves in the world, be enormously profitable.
Victoria, President Trump has threatened, before we go, tariffs on any country selling oil to Cuba. There was a report yesterday, I believe, that Cuba only had roughly about 2 weeks or less of oil supplies. David can pick this up because this regime has been in place for 70 years. Do you really think it falls at this point?
Well, that's why the action against Nicolas Maduro on January 3rd was so decisive. Venezuela was keeping the Cuban regime in place and had been for some decades through cheap or free oil. And we've also seen the cutoff of the oil from Mexico going to Cuba. So, yes, the reports are 7 to 12 days left before the lights literally go off on the island. And at that point, it's anybody's guess what happens next. But Raul Castro, at 94 years of age, probably isn't the answer.
But I remember the days when the Soviet Union died and suddenly Cuba lost 60% of their GDP literally overnight. And the regime survived. It survived because Castro just opened up just enough so that the people wouldn't rebel, et cetera. They know how to kind of play the two sides, the good cop, bad cop. And they're going to bring out the good cop in order to get things running again. It's happened before where we thought the regime was going to fail. It didn't. Might that happen again?
That's a mistake we can't afford to make again. And what happened in the 1990s after the collapse of the Soviets was that's when Venezuela stepped in after what should have been a catastrophic failure in Cuba. That's when Hugo Chavez, coming into power at the end of the 90s, said, hey, there's a cheap island I can basically buy with oil. And that's what he did. And that's what we've had ever since. And so if this happens again now, that's why the cutoff of the oil from Mexico is so important, because the president's, blockaded a lot of the Venezuelan oil. Mexico steps in. No, you've got to blockade that too to get to the change that everybody, I think, who's reasonable wants to see in Cuba.
Do you remember Obama doing the wave with Raul Castro?
Yeah.
While there were
going to the baseball game.
Well, Raul held Obama's hands. It was pretty.
Oh, but that was also
weak.
while French people were being massacred by Islamic terrorists in Paris. Remember that? Victoria Coates, great to see you.
Thank you, guys.